Okay, hello everyone and welcome to this day webinar. My name is Sacha Rotman-Ratois. I'm the Executive Director of the Combat Antisemitism Movement. We are honored to have today two important leaders for timely conversation on an issue of great consequence for the Jewish people and the global society as a whole. The past few years have been seeing a rising tide of antisemitism across the world, and in Europe as no exception. In fact, the continent has been the site of some of the worst acts of Jew hatred of recent memory. Our government action are needed to protect European Jewish communities and secure the future. Against this backdrop, just this month, the European Union unveiled the first ever comprehensive strategy on combating antisemitism and fostering Jewish life. The plan detailed a series of steps to be taken to prevent all forms of contemporary antisemitism and promote remembrance and education of the Holocaust. Today, we are hosting a dialogue between two distinguished experts on antisemitism issues in Europe. Robert Zinger, the chairman of the Center for Jewish Impact and a senior advisor of the Combat Antisemitism Movement. Robert, as a former CEO of the World Jewish Congress and World Art, has seen so many incidents of antisemitism in Europe, as working with so many decision leaders and knows the topics very well. I will also say that Robert is one of my mentors, so thank you, Robert, for being with us today.
Thank you, Sasha.
Joining Robert, we have the European Commission Coordinator for Combating Antisemitism and Fostering Jewish Life, Katharina von Schnurbein. Coordinator von Schnurbein has been an incredible ally in the fight against Jew hatred in the continent since she took her position 6 years ago and lead amazing processing in the European Commission. We look forward to hearing what you have to say, how you build this strategy, and what will be different to help securing Jewish life in Europe. So Mr. Singer and Coordinator Van Schnurbein, it's a pleasure to see you and thank you for being with us here today. I will turn the discussion over to you, Mr. Singer, and I look forward to hear it.
Thank you, Sasha, and thank you for everything that you and Cam are doing on this subject. And Katharina, it's fantastic to see you. We are going together on this issue for a number of years, and there's no doubt that you are the champion of this issue, not only within Europe, but also worldwide. I must say that after reading the plan, I was very impressed by what was put in place. And it's a pleasure to discuss it with you today and to understand more how it's really going to work. I just want to give some framework, the way I see it, of what you're trying. I think what all of us are trying to achieve here. So just to remind ourselves that Europe, before the Second World War, had a Jewish population of 9.5 million. There is less than 1.5 million Jews left today in Europe. And looking at the statistics that are published from time to time by different organizations, including by the European Union, it's pretty frightening. You see the situation where 38% of the young Jewish Europeans are considering to immigrate from Europe because they don't feel safe on the continent. Or 81% of young Jews say antisemitism is a problem in their country. Or 44% of young Jewish Europeans have practically experienced some anti-Semitic harassment. But it's not only within the Jewish population. Every second European citizen considers anti-Semitism as a problem. And 9 out of 10 Jews consider that antisemitism has increased in their own country. So in this context, and you know the figures better than anybody else, first of all, it's great to have somebody like yourself involved in this, but you are facing here a monumental issue to deal with, maybe of the historic, importance. And we are talking 80 years. You know, just a few weeks ago, we commemorated the 80th anniversary of the mass killing in Babi Yar. And suddenly, 80 years later, Jews are not safe to walk the streets of Europe. And really, these figures are frightening. So in this context, I would like to ask you a few questions, and I hope that this conversation will be less diplomatic and more precise and pragmatic. So from diplomacy to pragmatism, to see really how things can happen. But I once again want to emphasize that the very fact that the European Union has came with this strategy plan, and that you got the support of different countries and different states within the European Union. By itself, it's already a very significant step forward. So the first question is really, European Union is kind of an umbrella of 27 different organizations, different countries. So the question is really how is this plan supported by all 27? I know that you cannot give us the internal discussions that took place, but I'd like to understand: do you feel that you have a full support of different states to engage in the implementation of this plan?
Yes, thank you very much, Robert. I would like to join you with praising CAM for the work they have been doing over the past years. And I think in particular through all the online fora and the online work they do, this is really making a change. So congratulations to CAM. And yes, thank you also for already outlining from the strategy the key figures. We, of course, wanted to describe the seriousness of the situation, but we did not want to leave it there. So this is not a descriptive document. This is really about action and about bringing about change. We had unanimous adoption in the European Commission. So you know that the Commission consists of a commissioner from each member state, who is however independent from the member states. And we had already in the past 2 council declarations, which is the organizations where the 27 governments come together, also by unanimity with regards to addressing anti-Semitism in a holistic way and across policy areas. What encouraged me a lot is when President von der Leyen presented the strategy last week in Malmö. There was a lot of very positive feedback. You might have heard of the Malmö International Forum on combating anti-Semitism and remembering the Holocaust, where over 50 governments from across the globe, but also in particular from the EU, came together to make fresh pledges as to their initiatives to address anti-Semitism and to ensure that the Holocaust will be remembered also in the future. And to see this commitment, to see the various aspects in which member states actually proposed actions that are very congruent to what we have presented in the strategy and what we want to do on European level, but cannot do it alone. We need the member states. This, I think, shows that there is wide range support across the board. I think it's also important to recognize that a lot has already happened on national level and also on European level. But as you say, the challenges remain. And so the aim of this strategy is to ensure that the children of those and the grandchildren of those who had to leave Europe, had to flee Europe, or who left Europe in the past decades for anti-Semitic reasons, in the communist countries or also in Western Europe, and those Jews who are here in Europe see a future for themselves on this continent, and so to really turn the situation around.
Yeah, no, it's in this context, really, the plan, and I'll ask you later about the 3 pillars of the plan, but the plan is emphasizing the issues of security of the Jewish community on one hand, on the kind of global level, strategic level, but also speaks about the fostering the Jewish life, which means opening more Jewish schools, youth movements, Jewish community centers, synagogues, and allowing very robust Jewish life. So these two are not exactly coming together. You know, the security on one hand. On one hand, you have the need to put the police against each school and things of this kind. On the other hand, you want to force. The plan is emphasizing also fostering the Jewish life. So what is the priority between these two? How do you see it?
So I think at the moment, very clearly, security is an issue. And what we say and have been saying, but now we have better leverage also with regards to the member states, is that ensuring the security of its citizens is a responsibility of each state. And that also includes not only joint risk assessments with the Jewish community, but also to ensure that the funding for these security measures are not left with the communities. We ourselves are putting 24 million next year into a call to support activities on security in different countries, also between communities and between national authorities and the communities. So we are supporting this, but clearly the responsibility, the number one responsibility, also because of the proximity of the issue, is rests with the member states. But security is a prerequisite. While, you know, all the Jewish communities always say we would like to be able to go into our premises as we go into other premises, and I fully understand. And by the way, overall security has significantly increased. If I look at the school of my children, there is also by now security guards, and I'm not Jewish, so you know. So we have to be aware of this security issue as one prerequisite, but we wanted to make very clear that this is not only about fighting anti-Semitism, but it's also the positive of supporting Jewish life, and supporting Jewish life in its diversity, also in its religious traditions, and making it more visible. You might have heard of initiatives in Germany under the framework of 1,700 years of Jewish life in Germany that is taking place in the course of this year. And I really like the initiatives that are very local. You know, I mean, you had for example, a tram in Cologne. In Cologne, for those of you who know German who are watching, you say, instead of Hallo, you say Hallöchen. So what they did was to write Shalomchen instead of Shalom, you know, and these kind of things that just show that Jewish life is part of the city. And that is one important, if not maybe the most important aspect of this strategy to ensure a future.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with you that whatever will happen on the local level, at the end of the day, this will what will make the difference for the local communities. But still, going back to strategy, if you can briefly explain the three pillars of the strategic plan, and also how it's different, because as you said, many things took place during the last few years, and you initiated many of them. So what is really going to be, what is A, what are the three pillars, but B, how they are going to be different what we have today?
So yes, so we have three pillars. The first one is about preventing and combating all forms of anti-Semitism. When we say all forms, this is based on the IRA definition. For those of you who have been in this for some time, you know that this has really gained a lot of momentum in the last 5-6 years, and that now, you know, the fact that the IRA definition is the established reference because it reflects what the majority of Jews regard as anti-Semitic is a big step forward, and we recommend to member states to adopt it on top of having adopted it, of course, already in IRA, but being more specific about how they want to use the IRA definition. Within preventing and combating is also the idea of online anti-Semitism, and I guess we will maybe talk about this a bit later, because it's such a key element of what needs to happen now. And the other aspect is data collection, because in order to fight anti-Semitism, you need to make it visible. And we have, through our Fundamental Rights Agency, an overview every year to which member states contribute the figures of anti-Semitic incidents in their countries. Could be hate crime, but can also be below the hate crime threshold. And some member states for years have handed in 0 incidents. And I wish it was true, but it probably isn't. So we want to develop a methodology with the member states together to ensure that we can record anti-Semitic incidents and also incidents of other for other groups, of course, but in particular with regards to Jew hatred, and make it comparable between the EU countries. The second pillar is about protecting and fostering Jewish life. We already briefly touched upon it. So the security on the one side, because it is necessary, and the positive support of Jewish life. This can be also through awareness raising together with the Jewish communities. There will be a lot more funds available for project funding. In fact, the anti-Semitism strategy falls within a newly created program, Citizenship, Equality, Rights and Values, which with 1.55 billion for this budgeting period is the largest program that we ever have had on fundamental rights. So there will be a lot more funds available for, on the one side, positive action, and then for the third pillar as well, which is about education and research, not only on the Holocaust, but also anti-Semitism and Jewish life. And also Holocaust remembrance, finding new ways, finding digital ways, also involving young people, showing how local the Holocaust, the Shoah was, and to support this also with specific funding from a so-called remembrance strand, where the Holocaust is the key reference. And these 3 pillars are supposed to be reflected also in the EU's external action, where we are very clear that Israel is a key partner in this fight. Israel-related anti-Semitism is mentioned as one pernicious form of anti-Semitism in line with the IRA definition. And we are also very clear that anti-Semitism can hide behind anti-Zionism. So I think it's important to really acknowledge this and to see that together with Israel, also including in multinational organizations, we will address anti-Semitism. We will foster Jewish heritage as well, including through funding. We have funds available for safeguarding Jewish heritage also in EU partner countries. And to make sure that the Holocaust is remembered, for example, also through our delegations and in international organizations. So there are a lot of different aspects to this external side as well.
No, thank you, Katharina. And as an Israeli, I'm extremely happy to hear what you're saying. In Hebrew, we have a word which is impossible to translate, but that I'm sure that you heard from many people, which is tachlis. Tachlis is what is the practical, what is the next step on the practical level. So here I want to ask, you are dealing with this issue with 27 different countries, which are very different from each other. But on the other hand, obviously, the EU has influence well beyond the 27 countries. This morning, I had a breakfast with the mayor of Tirana, for example, in Albania. They're not part of the EU. He knew about the program and he would like very much to be part of this. So I have here 3 or 4 questions, and one on the tachlis level. One is really how you are going to deal, you as a EU, how you are going to deal with the 27 different countries. What is the mechanism? Who are the people? We know that there is a group of special advisors that you and I and some others put together 4 or 5 years ago. they are not always well placed, like Felix Klein in Germany, and they not always are the people who have the influence over budgets and things of this kind. So what is the mechanism between the EU and different countries in the implementation of this program? The second question is there a role for Jewish organizations, both international and local, and how you, on the strategy issue, how you see it? Because I'm sure you don't want to be floated with 124 Jewish organizations knocking on the doors of the EU. So the question how it's, if you already have some vision, how it's going to work. And you mentioned Israel, which I think is extremely important because anti-Zionism became part of everything that has to deal with anti-Semitism. So what in your vision, what role Israel has to play both as a government and as a civil society?
Yes, so with regards to the Tacheles question on how are we going to get member states to get involved, basically, because you're right that it needs to trickle down in order to create change for the Jewish communities. So first of all, there is very significant support from the president of the European Commission. The fact that she presented this as part of the Malmö International Forum shows the importance within the Commission. And then Vice President Skinas on the political level on our side, who is responsible for the European way of life, holds the ownership on the political side. And it's very significant that this strategy is under European way of life, because it shows where we want to go. Anti-Semitism goes against everything that the European Union stands for, and therefore we will support and we will also promote this strategy vis-a-vis the political leaders in the member states. And as I said, it was encouraging to see how many political leaders, heads of state and government and ministers were present in Malmö to make these pledges. So I think that the fact, I do see a tide changing there, that on political level, the willingness to really tackle this issue is increasing. I think also, by the way, in the understanding that, of course, the Jews are the first ones targeted by anti-Semitism, but it's never been good for Europe when anti-Semitism was on the rise, or when Jews felt that they were not safe or had to leave Europe. So it is also this understanding that by fighting anti-Semitism, you fight for democracy and you fight for your values. Yeah, this, I think, is important on the highest level. And then we have, as you say, different levels. There's a very good and growing network of special envoys on anti-Semitism, in which we actually have a global network by now. I'm very pleased to see that, for example, Latin America, the American Organization of States, has just appointed also a special envoy for Latin America, for the region, as we have here for Europe. So this will be an important platform to exchange good practices, so we don't all reinvent the wheel, to work together to make sure that that we can use the different instruments that we have in our different traditions, because indeed the member states are very different, and work much closer together. And I think, by the way, that in countries where, like in Germany, the special envoy post is within a ministry such as Interior or Justice, or with the Prime Minister, it really helps, because what you need to do is to work across the board. This is what we had to do for the strategy also. Reach out to all the departments of the Commission to make sure that we don't build here a fortress that is combating anti-Semitism, but we want all others to make sure that in their policies, in their funding programs, they reflect the fight against anti-Semitism. So I think this is also an understanding that is developing increasingly, and we meet twice a year in a formal setting, supported by the World Jewish Congress, but we have a lot of contact in between. There are, for example, countries where the special envoys are very much engaged in the structural processes of the European Union. So to get a reference to anti-Semitism in specific documents and to make sure that, you know, it is there. Then there are others who are very good in getting their own politicians to speak up. So, you know, so I think it's very complementary. And then, of course, we have, and this is certainly also evolved from before. We have funds available for member states to, on the one side, you know, for example, with regards to Jewish heritage, use these funds for renovating, can be also marking Jewish cemeteries or ensuring Holocaust, Shoah remembrance, and so on. These funds are there for member states, but they are also there for civil society. And so your second question with regards to how can Jewish communities get involved, I mean, one of my main goals at the beginning was to listen to the Jewish communities and how the situation is, to make sure that what we do really reflects the needs, and we have our ears on the ground, let's say. And out of this, I think some coalitions has already also been created, certainly here also in Brussels, the umbrella organizations, the international organizations. We just actually had a meeting today, a roundtable, to exchange ways forward now with this strategy. And then, of course, I think the special envoys on national level are those who coordinate more in the national context. But what we want to see is networks across Europe. And that is not only with regards to Jewish communities, but also other NGOs, for example, in the area of addressing anti-Semitism online, to work together in all EU member state countries, languages, and also languages, for example, that can bring anti-Semitic content into the EU from outside. And these kind of things need to be built up now. And I think that this cross-border coordination, cooperation, this is an added value that the EU can bring. And finally, the role of Israel. We have had for many years an EU-Israel dialogue on combating racism, xenophobia, and anti-Semitism, which takes place once a year, once here in Brussels and once in Jerusalem. This will be upgraded to a high-level dialogue where the Vice President will be also present, and we want to support this with more permanent structures and a steering committee to make sure that also in different other policy areas we intensify the cooperation. So from our side, for example, also with regards to education or to security, to technology, these kind of things where we have been cooperating to some extent, but that can certainly be intensified. And that includes also funding possibilities for NGOs from Israel. For example, in Horizon Europe, Israel is already now a partner, but also as part of the Citizens' Equality, Rights and Values program, Israeli NGOs can tap into this in cooperation always with European partners.
Well, thank you very much. And I see that I have a number of questions here. So one of these really relates to this, the priorities. Are you going to work only with the EU, with 27 members of the European Union, or are you going to extend it to other European countries that are at different stages of either joining EU or not being part of the EU? And for example, specifically, I must hear about the big Jewish communities in the countries of the former Soviet Union.
Yes, no, in fact, part of our external work is to cooperate with countries across the board, partner countries of the EU. This can be in the Balkans, it can be certainly in the neighborhood, former Soviet Union, also Latin America. You know, I mean, the idea is to make sure that we, in our human rights dialogues, for example, or our political dialogues with these countries, also address anti-Semitism as a human rights violation, for example, yeah, or the support for Jewish life, the heritage support, these kind of things. So this is definitely foreseen. It is a, if you look at the document, it's at the very end, the last chapter of the strategy that describes this external action.
No, thank you. Moving to what you mentioned before, most of the countries of the European Union did recognize and endorse the IRA. Some still didn't. In order to be part of this initiative, do you expect remaining ones to recognize IRA, and how do you see this developing? Yeah,
no, we see that the IRA has become really the recognized tool when it comes to recognizing anti-Semitism. It's non-legally binding, so it has become a training tool for law enforcement authorities and for educators, for example. Together with the IRA, we issued in January of this year a handbook on the practical use of the IRA definition, which is based on recognizing incidents that really happened based on the IRA definition, and then also shows best practices on how concretely this definition can be used in the follow-up to incidents or in the prevention of incidents. So I see that there are more and more countries. I recognized, I think in the last days, for example, Australia now adopted it. It has gained momentum, and certainly as part of the strategy, we have recommended to all member states to adopt it and to use it above all. There are also countries, by the way, who use it and have not formally adopted it beyond what they have already done in IRA, because, as you know, the definition in IRA was adopted also by unanimity.
Now, you mentioned before that the importance of Holocaust memory. Now, also the figures and the statistics in this respect are kind of pretty frightening. One European of 20 has never heard about the Holocaust, and then less than half of Europeans think it's not sufficiently taught in the schools, and only 3% of Europeans are actually informed about what happened in Europe. Really, only 85 years ago. So in this context, I understand that the plan is giving special attention to everything that has to do with Holocaust memory. But also in this context, I understand that there are going to be specific actions, plans, activities, and budgets considered both on national and EU level, correct?
Yes. No, I think really to shape Europe's future, we need to understand our past, and the Holocaust was a defining moment for the European Union. So it is important to keep the memory also for the victims, but also for simply our own identity, our own understanding. It was encouraging to see, because education, of course, is a very sensitive issue in most countries in the world, and how curricula are written and how history is taught is very much a national issue. But it was encouraging to see that almost across the board, countries pledged to increase the education about the Holocaust, in the awareness that that knowledge about it is actually dwindling quickly. Yeah. So what we have offered as part of the strategy is for countries who want to do reforms, and this can be including in their educational systems, that the EU can support these reforms. We have a specific entity that supports reforms in member states, and that would could be, upon the request of the member state, obviously, come also to help in these respects. We will create a network of young European ambassadors to promote Holocaust remembrance in their own surroundings, can be in their schools, in their universities, in their youth clubs. And for example, Italy pledged in Malmö that they want to create a competition of young people remembering the Shoah. So, you know, these things are very congruent, and I think we can support and tap into these different initiatives to ensure that we get a truly European network. I already said also how important it is for us to show how local the Shoah was. I think also with an eye of showing, you know, how important civil courage is, and the need to speak up when things are happening in your neighborhood. But what we want to create is a network of places where the Holocaust happened. So not only the big extermination camps that we know of already, and that to a large extent already are also connected and draw visitors and education programs, for example, but to show locally houses where Jews were hidden, or deportation points, killing sites, things that have not been marked yet, and develop together with local entities, NGOs, authorities, schools, the knowledge about what happened to my neighbor in the past, and to give this a European label. So we across Europe in the end will have an awareness about, here also something happened, to have this then, with some sort of description or something. We will have to see how it will be transposed concretely into action, but to really show the local aspects. And then another important aspect is the training of education professionals and also policy makers. And UNESCO and the OSCE have developed a very good program on addressing anti-Semitism through education. We will fund their program in order for them to do these trainings, and we also want to make clear that it's not only about teaching about the Holocaust, but also showing the diversity and the contribution of the Jewish population throughout the centuries in the countries. And this aspect, I think, is something that's also very important.
Yeah, no, I'm as somebody who is involved with education and Jewish education and the education on the Holocaust memory for many, many years. I'm really very happy that this is the approach you have taken. The last question before we'll start wrapping up is obviously it deals with the social media. You mentioned about this, but obviously as the European Union, you are one of the main regulators that has a lot of power in this context. So how do you see this being really implemented on the strategy level of the European Union?
No, absolutely. So the internet is seen by 9 out of 10 Jews, but I think by many others as well, as the main entry port for anti-Semitism into the living room. So it is key to ensure that this is addressed. On European level, as you say, we already have legislation that criminalizes incitement to hatred and violence. So this kind of speech already today, and that, by the way, includes Holocaust denial or trivialization of the Holocaust across Europe, is in place and needs to be applied. This is important, and we have raised this in the strategy as well, when it comes to the capacity in and the willingness on national level to bring online haters to court, because what is illegal offline is also illegal online. And it is very important to understand that, you know, we need to, the full force of the law needs to be applied when it comes also to online hatred and to Holocaust denial online. On top of this, the European Commission has proposed the so-called Digital Services Act, which is now with the Parliament and the Council, to further strengthen legal possibilities to ensure that internet platforms can be held accountable, to control, to make transparent their money flows, their data flows, to show to authorities and users, you know, what kind of algorithms they use, and for them to be responsible for their algorithms, to have better redress mechanisms and also reporting structures. So this legislation, once passed, will be key to addressing in particular also disinformation and fake news, so the so-called awful but lawful content that is out there that is not necessarily illegal and therefore needs to be taken down, but that needs to be countered by counter narratives, by dismantling conspiracy myths, by showing the facts. And for this reason, we want to build capacity among organizations that are capable of recognizing anti-Semitic content based on the IRA definition, discern whether it is illegal and therefore needs to be flagged and needs to be taken down, or whether it is conspiracy myths. And by the way, during COVID, we have seen a significant increase. We did a study about increase of anti-Semitic content during COVID, comparing January, February 2020 and 2021, and we saw a 7-fold increase in French language and a 13-fold increase in German language. These were the 2 languages that we measured, and this, you know, needs to be addressed. And very often it's not illegal necessarily; it's the conspiracy about Jews bringing about COVID, or, you know, profiting from COVID. So this needs to be addressed, and therefore we need a network of fact checkers again that can deal with this across the board in different languages. And then there's one final aspect also, I think, that is important when it comes to anti-Semitism, is the displaying and selling of Nazi memorabilia and artifacts and literature that are illegal in many member states, but not illegal in all. But if you would live in a country that where it is banned, you can still order it online and it be delivered to your home, despite the fact that it's actually illegal. So there we need to talk to the platforms to ensure that their business activity comes into compliance with the law applicable in the member state. Yeah. So all of these aspects aim to ensure that the internet becomes again a place where we all want to be, because I think we have got so used to the fact that if we want to use the net and want to use certain social platforms, that we just have to put up with a certain amount of hatred. And I think this we need to turn back and ensure that you know, it becomes a channel of communication for which it was probably, hopefully, originally created also. Yeah.
Katharina, thank you very much for this interesting discussion. You know, 45 minutes ended, but you have now kind of 45 months to work on this issue, both personally and on behalf of the Combat Antisemitism movement and the Center for Jewish Impact. We wish you a lot of success, because your success is ours and everybody's in Europe. I don't think we are going to eliminate anti-Semitism in our lifetime, but we can give it a decent fight, and that's what you are doing. And as I told you when we met, when I saw you for the first time, I think with people like yourself and with leaders like yourself in the European Union, and with the programs that was supported by all the constituencies, by all the states of the European Union, I do think we have a hope. And we, from our perspective, I guess I can speak on behalf of all the Jewish organizations, but also of all the Israelis who are 100% committed, not only helping your plan, the European Union plan, to become a success, but work together with you towards achieving these goals. And for this, when you look back in 2031, about the 10 years plan, I guess you'll have some reviews also in the middle. We want to see that this plan really became a reality, and you do have here a really historic opportunity to change things in Europe to the better. And we'll be very happy to walk together with you. So once again, on behalf of CAM, on behalf of the Center for Jewish Impact, thank you so much, not only for this interview, but for everything you are doing in the last few years. And we know how difficult it was, and I guess still is. But now you have a roadmap, and I think that we're in a much better shape. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And I really look forward also to working together with civil society, and also maybe some of the listeners to this talk today, to make sure that we can really across the board reach out and put an end to anti-Semitism in the end. I had a commissioner once for whom I worked as spokesperson who told me, when he said, we need zero unemployment, I said, how do you get to zero unemployment? He said, if you don't aim high, you don't even reach the middle. So I think we need to really aim highest in order to make sure that we achieve it.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.